All right, let's talk about our new focus, which is rhetorical analysis. So, the way that the course is set up is really to walk you through a narrative essay, which we've already talked about, the literacy narrative. So, it's about you, it's a way to use you as kind of the foundational resource for what's your memory, what's something that you can focus on, what's an incident event that you can narrate, have an introduction, conclusion, a takeaway, and kind of ease yourself into the writing process of the class. Then we move to rhetorical analysis. So, if you've never heard that term before, you're literally analyzing the rhetoric of something. So, it could be a speech, could be a piece of writing, could be an advertisement. What does that really mean? What is rhetoric? Well, I liken it to my father in law, who's very handy and crafty, and he could take not a newer car because they're basically big computers, but if you go back some decades, when you could take apart a car and put it back together, take apart the engine, it does actually, by taking it apart, which I've witnessed him take pieces of an engine apart, and he can talk about this connects to this is what this does, and it gives you a good idea of how an engine works. And for those of you that are just naturally gifted writers or never really thought about your writing process other than, these words appear in my head and they end up on the paper, there is a process to writing. So, what you're going to do is pick apart and analyze a piece of published professional writing, look at the moves the writer makes, learn what the terms are for those moves, and then hopefully learn something about what goes into a good piece of writing. And then when we move on to the autoethnography, which is basically a research paper teaching you research skills, which is ultimately the focus of the course and focus of Composition 102, which I talked to you about in the first video, which is really the focus of getting you to be comfortable with the research process so other teachers in your major and your higher level classes don't have to teach it to you and can be sure that you have some familiarity with it. But anyway, to go back to what I was talking about with rhetorical analysis, you are going to learn purpose, audience, logical and emotional appeals, credibility. Those are the foundational elements of a rhetorical analysis. So if we think about an advertisement, what's the purpose? So ultimately, the purpose is to persuade you to buy the product. It might be entertaining, it might be informing you about something, but ultimately, the major purpose is to get you to spend money on the product. And so that brings us back to what is purpose. It's three things. It is to persuade, to inform, to entertain. Usually it's a combination of two or all three, but there's obviously a dominant one, right? If I'm a comedian, you're there to laugh. I'm to entertain you, but I might talk about topical issues that might be persuading you about my worldview, about my politics. Everything is political nowadays, so maybe you get an idea of the person's politics based on their set that they perform, and they're informing you of issues, but also persuading you. But ultimately, their dominant form as a comedian is to entertain you. Audience, I'm 46, so sometimes I see commercials or award shows, and I'm like, who are these people? And my wife says, you're just not the audience. And that is true. I am not that is not, and if it's an advertisement, I'm not the intended demographic. Now, would they like it if I paid for their product? Yes, but I'm not the one that they're really trying to get to buy it, right? So I've moved through different demographic stages of my life, from my teens to my 20s to my 30s and now my 40s. And as you do get older, you do kind of notice when you slip from one category to the next. So that's purpose and audience. Logical appeals, facts and statistics. So can I persuade you with statistical information about why it's harmful to smoke? That's a logical appeal. Could I bring somebody in who has a breathing device and a stoma in their neck that they have to talk through a vibrational device? Maybe they show you the scar from their surgery. They talk to you about lung cancer, and you get kind of a pit in your stomach and you kind of get afraid. That would be an emotional appeal. In an emotional appeal, you have to talk about the emotion that the writer or speaker is trying to draw from you and how. So, and then credibility. If I'm going to talk to you about quitting smoking, but I'm an English teacher, there might be a thought in the back of your head, does he really know what he's talking about? But if I'm a licensed physician, if I'm the Surgeon General, if I am the head of a cancer ward, maybe there's more credibility there. Or if I'm a writer for the New York Times and I'm writing an opinion piece, but I include research from more knowledgeable others, from the Surgeon General, from a practicing physician who wrote a book, and I have a quote, I can build my own credibility on the backs of more knowledgeable others. So with all that being said, you are going to learn about rhetorical techniques that you've probably never heard about, and that's okay. That's great. That's going to help you, and that's going to make you a better writer, because by taking apart the pieces of writing and putting them back together, the idea is that maybe you develop, internalize some of those skills, and you become more mindful and intentional in the way that you plan out, write at the sentence level or big picture wise, something that is meant to entertain, inform, or persuade. And so if you look at assignment 7, 8, and 9, you're going to start with writing a summary of David McCullough Jr.'s speech. Then you're going to break it down for author, audience, setting, purpose, and text. And then you're going to write a rhetorical analysis. And those are all on the same text, his speech. So you're just building, right? You're setting the foundation. It's like I'm making you plan from assignment 7 to 8 to then write the rhetorical analysis. And the central question is, how does David McCullough Jr. use rhetorical techniques to communicate his message to his graduating audience? And what effects do these choices have on the audience? So I can tell you right now, even though it's a graduation speech, yes, it is, the audience is the graduating class, but it's also his colleagues who are there at the graduation, as well as the parents, the family members who have chosen to attend as well. Those are all part of the audience for you to consider. And then once the video of his speech went viral, it became a much wider audience. So those are all things. But when he sat down and crafted that speech to give, he knew it was just going to be at that podium, at that graduation, no knowledge that it would then be filmed, put on the internet, and go viral. David McCullough Jr., interesting guy. He turned it into a book because, like I said, it went viral. It then became a Time magazine article where they reproduced the speech, which the text is available in the module for that. But he also, as David McCullough Jr., is not the same as David McCullough. David McCullough, his father, I guess we could call him David McCullough Sr., but he's just David McCullough, is a major historian. So just Google David McCullough, not David McCullough Jr., and you're going to see a guy who's written, very famous, great writer, historian. But anyway, you're going to break it down for purpose, audience, credibility, logical, emotional appeals, and then I give you a rhetorical techniques handout because I want you to look at some of the more nitty-gritty sentence level techniques. So parallelism, antithesis, anaphora, enumeratio, asyndeton, polysyndeton, hypophora, amplification, procatalepsis, parenthesis, and you're probably sitting there like, what is he talking about? But in the handout, there are examples, explanations to try to break it down as easy as possible. And the point is, how does this writer go about emphasizing certain ideas through the language that he or she uses? So anyway, you'll learn all this. This is a great assignment. So again, raise your hand if you have any questions or concerns, but that is where we are headed. So I look forward to reading your work. And remember, no AI. So you might be struggling with what a rhetorical analysis is, what it entails, whether you're on the right track. Rather than going to ChatGPT, Claude, Anthropic, whatever, maybe shoot me an email. Engage in the learning process with your teacher and give me a paragraph and say, is this correct? And I can respond to you. I'm not an algorithm. I'm an actual human being. I've taught for 24 years, long time. I might have some knowledge to share with you, and I would not mind responding to an email. So with that being said, from the planning to the writing to the revising to the editing, it is your own work. You're learning, you're engaging in the learning process about what a rhetorical analysis is. It might not be perfect right from the go, but you will learn it, and you will reach out if you have any questions. So I look forward to reading your work.